The wind howled across the barren desert of Tarkus 4, carrying with it fine red dust that scratched against Elias Kane's cracked visor. His scout ship, the Horizon Light, was a mangled wreck a few kilometers back, half buried in sand, smoke rising in slow spirals into the dusty sky. Elias staggered across the open plain, each step more painful than the last. His left leg throbbed with a sharp, unyielding pain from the crash, and his right arm hung at an awkward angle, a reminder of the metal beam that had crushed it inside the ship. For hours, he had crawled and limped, searching for shelter, water, anything that could keep him alive. Tarkus 4 had been marked as uninhabited in old star maps, abandoned long ago after the collapse of the alien civilization that once thrived here. Rumors of strange ruins had reached human explorers decades ago, but none had stayed long enough to report their discoveries. Elias never planned to explore the planet. The storm had forced him down, and now survival was the only thing that mattered. Ahead, through the haze of red dust, something shimmered. Angular shapes rose from the sand, half hidden beneath centuries of erosion. At first, Elias thought it was an optical illusion, a trick of the wind, but as he approached, the shapes resolved into ruins, enormous alien structures that seemed both broken and alive. The buildings were massive, made of smooth black alloy that reflected the dim sun like dark mirrors. The architecture was unlike anything humans had seen. The edges curved in impossible angles, and strange symbols glowed faintly along walls, pulsing with a soft blue light. Elias slowed, each step cautious. The ruins were silent, but they radiated an energy that prickled his skin. His instincts, honed by years of survival training, told him to keep moving carefully. He could hear the distant creak of shifting metal, the soft hum of something beneath the sand. And despite his pain, his curiosity burned. This place, something's alive here, he whispered to himself. He found a partial doorway leading into a massive chamber, the ceiling arched high above, supported by alien pillars carved with undecipherable markings. Broken machinery and scattered debris littered the floor. The air was cold and dry, but the hum of power made the place feel electric, almost alive. Elias leaned against a pillar to catch his breath. His leg screamed, his arm throbbed, but his mind was sharper than ever. Survival demanded awareness. As he explored, his foot struck something hard beneath the sand. He bent down and brushed away layers of dust. A metal panel emerged, engraved with glowing symbols. When he pressed his fingers against it, the panel shuddered and slid open. A cold gust of air escaped from within, carrying the scent of something ancient, metallic yet strangely alive. Elias froze. The panel revealed a massive chamber hidden beneath the ruins. At the center of the room lay a warship, unlike any human vessel. Its hull was smooth and black with sharp angular lines, almost like a predator waiting beneath the sand. Blue lights ran along its surface, pulsing rhythmically as if it had a heartbeat. Elias's heart raced. His mind ran 1,000 questions at once. Who built this? Why was it buried here? And most importantly, was it alive? He stepped closer, his movements careful but cautious. He felt a faint vibration under his boots, and a deep hum resonated through the floor. The ship seemed to respond to his presence, its lights flickering and scanning. His pulse quickened, but he forced himself to stay calm. He raised his hand, brushing against the hull. The surface was cold, smooth, and unnervingly responsive. Small panels shifted beneath his fingers, revealing ports and strange controls. Symbols flashed as if trying to communicate, but Elias had no frame of reference. It was alien in every sense, and then it happened. A sudden surge of light erupted from the ship. Blue beams shot upward, scanning the ruins. Panels along the hull rotated and opened, revealing what looked like a cockpit glowing with alien interfaces. Elias stumbled back, his body trembling. The ship's AI, or whatever controlled it, was awake. The chamber vibrated as a low voice echoed in his mind. It wasn't words he could understand, but images and emotions flowed directly into him. Curiosity, caution, recognition. The ship had sensed him. Elias swallowed hard. He knew he had triggered something powerful and dangerous. Yet despite the fear, he felt awe. This was no ordinary warship. It was a relic of a civilization that had once dominated the stars, a weapon of unimaginable power. And now it was aware of him. He stepped closer again, drawn by a mixture of fear and fascination. The lights on the ship pulsed faster, almost like it was breathing. A panel extended, forming a shape he could sit in. Tentatively, he climbed inside, ignoring the pain in his leg. The controls responded immediately to his presence. Symbols shifted into patterns, some of which he instinctively understood. It was unlike anything he had ever piloted. Every motion of his hand produced results as if the ship was learning from him. Yet the underlying intelligence was unmistakable. The ship was sentient, and it was deciding whether he was friend or foe. Hours passed as Elias explored the ship's systems. Despite being wounded, exhausted, and unsure, he found that human intuition, trial, error, and persistence allowed him to understand more than he ever thought possible. Buttons, levers, holographic panels, they responded to him in ways he could predict. The ship wasn't just a machine. It was a partner testing his capabilities. Finally, a calm settled over the chamber. The lights dimmed slightly and the AI seemed to accept him. Elias exhaled, leaning back in the cockpit. He was safe for now, and yet he knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere beyond the desert he could feel it. The galaxy was bigger than he had imagined, and this warship, buried and forgotten, had just awoken because of him. He was no longer just a survivor of a crash. He was the key to something far greater, something that could change the fate of humanity forever. The hum of the warship filled the cavern beneath the ruins, a deep, steady rhythm that resonated through Elias Kane's bones. Outside, the desert winds continued to whip against the ruined city, carrying fine red dust into every crevice. But inside, Elias felt a strange calm. The ship's AI, whatever it was, had accepted his presence, yet calm did not mean safe. Elias' mind raced. He had survived the crash, stumbled into the ruins, and awakened a powerful alien warship, but he didn't know its full capabilities or whether it would consider him a friend or a threat. He pushed aside the panic and focused on something he understood: survival. The first step was to explore the ship carefully. The cockpit, if it could even be called that, was unlike anything human engineers had designed. Smooth surfaces curved in impossible ways. Glowing panels hovered in midair and symbols shifted constantly as though alive. Elias reached out, instinctively touching a glowing panel. Immediately, a holographic map of the surrounding area appeared. Mountains, valleys, and the scattered ruins glowed in blue, while tiny symbols moved across the desert like ants on a vast plain. Elias frowned. "Ants," he muttered. Then he realized the symbols weren't insects, they were scanning signals. Something was moving in the desert. He tapped another panel. A three-dimensional figure of the warship rose from the deck, rotating slowly. Its alien design was terrifying and beautiful. Multiple wings or fins extended from the hull, but the lines were sharp, precise, and elegant. Weapons bays were visible, but they weren't just guns. They looked like energy conduits capable of channeling immense power. Elias swallowed hard. He was sitting in a weapon of unimaginable destruction. If he misused it, an entire planet or more could be destroyed. A vibration beneath his seat made him jump. The ship was alive. Elias could sense it. And then came the voice, not words, not sounds, but thoughts, feelings flowing directly into his mind. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Elias froze. He had expected alarms, lights, maybe robotic drones, but this was something entirely different. His heart raced, but he forced himself to respond. "I am Elias Kane. I survived a crash. I mean no harm." The AI pulsed in response, a soft blue glow washing over the cockpit. The meaning was clear. The ship was curious. It had not encountered humans before, or at least not recently. Its ancient systems had waited, buried for centuries, and now it had awakened because of him. Elias took a deep breath. I need to survive. Can you help me?" There was a pause, and then the ship seemed to guide him. Panels shifted and a series of symbols lit up. Elias studied them, moving his hand experimentally. The controls responded immediately. Levers, buttons, and floating panels moved with his touch, translating his intentions into actions. He realized the ship was teaching him, or at least adapting to his instincts. Hours passed in a blur. Elias learned to move the ship's systems, understanding energy readings, navigation controls, and defensive protocols. He discovered that the ship could cloak itself, lift off silently, and scan vast areas for life forms or technology. Its weapons were locked, but the hum of dormant energy channels told him that the firepower was enormous. Then the movement outside caught his attention. Symbols on the holographic map indicated activity, small, fast-moving shapes approaching the ruins. Elias squinted at the display. "Scouts. Alien scouts," he muttered. He had been so absorbed with the ship that he had forgotten Tarkus 4 wasn't completely empty. Whatever civilization had built this warship might have left defenses or predators. And now something had noticed the ruins had become active again. The hum of the ship changed, pulsing faster. The AI was alert. Elias realized that the ship could sense the scouts too, and it was preparing for their arrival. He hesitated. Should he confront them or hide? His survival instincts won. Hiding wouldn't help. And besides, the scouts might recognize him as human and attack anyway. He tapped a sequence on the control panel, and the ship's sensors expanded, locking onto the approaching units. Symbols on the map transformed into readouts he could understand. Speed, size, energy signatures. The scouts were small, fast, and highly maneuverable. They were designed for reconnaissance, but they carried weapons capable of crippling a human vessel easily. Elias's pulse quickened. He had no weapons of his own. Not yet then an idea struck him. The ship was alive. It could react. Perhaps he didn't need to fight the scouts directly. He just needed to guide the ship wisely. He pressed his hands against the glowing console. Energy flowed beneath his fingertips, intuitive and powerful. The ship responded, tilting slightly as if preparing to move. The scouts were almost upon him. Suddenly the ship's AI projected something into his mind. Trust. Use your instincts. Elias nodded, even though the AI couldn't see him. He followed the feeling, not the readings. He initiated a movement the scouts did not anticipate. The ship lifted silently from the buried chamber, carrying him upward. Dust and debris fell away, and the desert sun glinted off the black hull. The scouts opened fire. Beams of energy streaked toward him, cutting through sand and rock. But the ship moved with uncanny speed and precision. It twisted and rotated in ways that human pilots couldn't imagine, dodging the attacks with instinctual grace. Elias marveled. This was no longer just a machine. It was a partner, reacting to his decisions while anticipating threats on its own. Using the ship's energy pulses, Elias sent a wave of force through the desert, knocking several scouts off balance. They skidded across the sand, unable to track him. Others retreated, perhaps recognizing the warship's superior power. Elias realized then that the legends of this warship's might were not exaggerations. It was a force unlike anything humanity had faced before. But as exhilaration rose, fear crept back. This was only the scouts. The AI's glowing pulses suggested something far larger. Far more dangerous was waiting somewhere beyond the desert. Elias had no idea what it could be. He focused on survival, guiding the ship through the ruins, testing the limits of its systems. As he moved, he realized he could communicate with it in a way. Not words, not spoken language, thoughts, gestures, instincts. The AI understood his intentions. He could feel its calculations, its predictions, its awareness of the scouts, and his mind adapted to it. By sunset, Elias had explored most of the buried warship's accessible systems. He discovered defensive shields, propulsion mechanisms, and even a limited weapon interface, though he had not yet armed it. He realized something profound. He could command this vessel, but it would never let him act recklessly. The AI was cautious just as he was. Together, they were stronger than either alone. Elias leaned back in the cockpit chair, wincing as pain radiated from his broken arm and leg. He allowed himself a moment of relief. He had survived the crash, awakened an alien warship, and fended off hostile scouts. Against all odds, humanity, his courage, his instincts had made the difference, and yet, a nagging thought lingered. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was far larger than the desert before him. If a scout patrol had survived for centuries on this desolate planet, what else might exist beyond the stars? What forces had built this warship, and why had it been buried for so long? The AI's pulses seemed to echo his thoughts. It had questions too. Questions about the human species it had never encountered. Questions about what this fragile, wounded creature could accomplish. Elias closed his eyes briefly, imagining the universe beyond Tarkus 4. He pictured the distant stars, human colonies, and the possibility of other alien civilizations, and he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a human who had awakened power that even advanced alien civilizations had feared. And if he could learn, adapt, and think creatively, if he could trust his instincts, he might just be able to use this warship to protect humanity, and perhaps even change the fate of the stars. The sun dipped below the horizon. painting the desert in shades of blood red and gold. The warship pulsed softly beneath him, alive and waiting. Elias Kane knew the first step was over. But the next step, the real journey, was just beginning. The desert of Tarkus IV stretched endlessly beneath the dim glow of the twin moons, painting the ruins in silvery light. Elias Kane stood on the bridge of the alien warship, still wincing from the pain in his leg and arm. The scouts were gone, but the memory of their rapid attacks lingered in his mind. He knew now that Tarkus IV was not a safe place, and that awakening the warship had stirred more than just curiosity. The alien AI pulsed around him, an almost tangible presence. It communicated not with words, but with images, feelings, and concepts. Elias had learned to interpret its signals, and now the flow of information was clearer than ever. "There is a fleet," the AI conveyed, images flashing through his mind. Sleek black ships moving with precision. They were not Tarkus IV's scouts, they were larger, older, and armed for war. Elias's heart sank. He understood immediately. This fleet had survived centuries, hidden somewhere beyond the desert, perhaps in orbit or on another nearby planet. If they reached human colonies unchallenged, the destruction would be catastrophic. "We can't let them reach the colonies," he said aloud. Even though the AI didn't require speech, it pulsed in acknowledgement, sending streams of data and control panels into the holographic displays around him. The warship was immense, far larger than any human vessel Elias had ever seen. Its engines, though dormant for centuries, could traverse planetary atmospheres and interstellar space. The weapons arrays were sophisticated, capable of firing devastating energy blasts, launching drones, and even projecting defensive shields that could withstand entire fleet attacks. Yet Elias knew something crucial. He could not simply press a button and destroy the enemy. He lacked knowledge of their tactics, and the AI's guidance, while helpful, could not predict human unpredictability or improvisation. This was where his species' strength lay. "All right," he muttered, rubbing his sore arm. "Let's see what we can do." He began to interface with the ship, exploring its complex systems. Energy conduits pulsed beneath his fingertips, and holographic projections showed the surrounding star systems. He could see several planets in the sector, and the AI highlighted one in particular. A small Earth-like colony under threat. Human lives were at stake. Elias felt a surge of determination. Despite his injuries, he had faced danger and survived. Now he had the opportunity to do something far greater, to protect humanity using this incredible alien power. "We move silently," the AI conveyed. "We strike before they are aware." Elias nodded. He had learned to trust the AI, but he knew one thing humans had over any alien machine: creativity. He began to devise a plan, combining the ship's abilities with strategies no alien would predict. He instructed the AI to cloak the warship completely, hiding it from sensors. Then he plotted a trajectory that would place them between the fleet and the human colony, using the terrain of nearby moons and asteroid belts to mask their approach. It was risky. One mistake and the fleet would detect them. But Elias's instincts were sharp. He guided the ship with care, feeling every pulse of energy, every vibration, every signal from the AI. Together they became a single entity, a blend of human ingenuity and alien precision. Hours passed in tense preparation. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to their mission. Finally, Elias reached the coordinates where the fleet had been last detected. The holographic display showed dozens of ships forming a tight formation. They were massive, armored, and heavily armed. Each vessel radiated energy that Elias could feel even through the warship's sensors. He took a deep breath. This was it, the first true test. "They are unaware of us," the AI sent. "Strike wisely." Elias nodded again, and his mind raced with possibilities. Direct confrontation would be suicide. Instead, he used the ship's energy projectors to create illusions, scattering false signals across the fleet's sensors. Alien ships turned, firing at phantoms that did not exist. Confusion rippled through their formation. Elias smiled. This was the advantage humans had, the ability to think in unpredictable ways, to improvise when logic failed. The AI responded, adjusting shields and propulsion in real time, learning from his tactics. Together they began to dismantle the enemy fleet piece by piece, targeting energy conduits, disabling engines, and creating openings for further attacks. Even so, the fleet was formidable. Some ships adapted to their tricks, detecting anomalies and returning fire. Beams of energy streaked through space, forcing Elias to maneuver the warship with precision. He leaned forward, sweat dripping from his brow, every movement deliberate, every decision critical. Then came the first direct strike. One of the enemy ships, larger than the others, unleashed a concentrated beam aimed straight at the warship. Elias's instincts kicked in. He activated the shields, but the energy still rattled the hull. Panels flickered, systems overloaded. For a moment, fear gripped him, but he pushed through. He adjusted the ship's angle, letting the beam glance off the surface, then countered with a pulse from the warship's energy arrays. The enemy ship shuddered and began to drift, disabled. Elias allowed himself a moment of triumph. The human mind had found a solution where even the alien fleet's algorithms had failed. And yet, he knew this was only the beginning. More ships remained, and the fleet's commander, whatever it was, would soon understand that they faced an unprecedented opponent. Hours blurred into night as Elias continued the battle. Using clever maneuvers, unexpected energy bursts, and rapid improvisation, he dismantled the fleet's formation. The AI adapted to his tactics, learning to anticipate both his moves and the enemy's. It was a partnership unlike any other, a combination of human intuition and alien technology that no enemy could fully predict. By the time the first light of dawn touched the stars, the fleet was in retreat. The surviving ships scattered, leaving the colony safe for now. Elias sank into the cockpit seat, exhausted but exhilarated. He had done it. Against overwhelming odds, humanity, through his courage and quick thinking, had triumphed. The AI pulsed softly around him, almost contemplative. It had learned much from Elias, and Elias had learned much from it. Together they had proven that even a single human, armed with courage, creativity, and determination, could change the outcome of events that had seemed inevitable. Elias looked out at the stars, the first rays of light reflecting off the warship's black hull. He knew the galaxy was far larger than he had imagined. There would be other fleets, other threats, and countless challenges ahead. But he also knew something profound. Humanity had something no alien machine could replicate: imagination, courage, and the will to act in the face of impossible odds. He allowed himself a small smile. For the first time since the crash, he felt hope. Not just for himself, but for all of humanity. He had stumbled into the ruins wounded, alone and desperate. Now he was part of something far greater, a force capable of standing against threats that had slept for centuries. The warship pulsed once more, a quiet affirmation. Elias Kane was no longer merely a survivor. He was a human capable of wielding the power of a forgotten civilization, guiding it with courage, intuition, and ingenuity. And the galaxy, vast, mysterious, and full of danger, was about to learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. As the ship hovered silently above the desert, Elias set his sights on the stars. The mission had begun, but it was only the first step. Ahead lay countless worlds, hidden enemies, and ancient powers that had lain dormant for millennia. And yet, for the first time, he felt ready. Whatever came next, humanity, through him, would face it head-on. And perhaps, just perhaps, they would prove that even in a galaxy of advanced alien civilizations, the human spirit could shine brighter than any weapon. The stars stretched endlessly before Elias Kane, each one a pinprick of light in the vast darkness of space. The alien warship glided silently through the void, its black hull reflecting distant starlight like a polished mirror. Elias had survived the scout attack and had bested the first fleet, but he knew that the galaxy held far greater threats. What he had faced so far was merely the prelude. He flexed his sore arm, wincing at the lingering pain from the crash. The warship's AI pulsed softly around him, aware of his discomfort, aware of every thought he had. Elias had learned to interpret its signals, and the bond between them had deepened. Where the AI could calculate, Elias could improvise. Where he had limitations, the AI's power compensated. Together they were unstoppable, but only if they trusted each other completely. Ahead, the sensors detected movement, something larger, faster, and more organized than the scattered fleets they had encountered before. An enormous armada loomed on the edge of the star system, black ships arranged in perfect formation. They were alien war machines, ancient and disciplined, and their presence radiated a threat that made Elias's pulse quicken. "We're not just dealing with scouts this time," he muttered. "This is a full-scale fleet." The AI pulsed in agreement, images of alien symbols and diagrams flashing across the cockpit. Elias studied them carefully. Each ship was heavily armed and shielded. They would not be fooled by simple illusions or minor energy pulses. This battle would require more than speed and stealth. It would require strategy, cunning, and creativity. Elias gritted his teeth. He had survived worse, he had to. Humanity depended on it, he began to plan. The fleet's formation was strong but rigid, a pattern based on precision and predictability. Humans, however, thrived on improvisation. Elias adjusted the ship's trajectory, using asteroid belts and debris fields to mask their approach. The AI adapted instantly, generating real-time simulations of potential outcomes, and allowing Elias to choose the one that maximized both stealth and effectiveness. As they drew closer, Elias realized that brute force would not win this battle. Even the warship's immense power could not obliterate the fleet without risk. So he relied on human ingenuity. Using the ship's cloaking systems, he split the energy signature, creating false projections of their location. The fleet reacted to the decoys, diverting weapons fire and altering formation. Elias smiled. Alien machines were brilliant but predictable in their rigidity. Human creativity could exploit their patterns. He then activated a new system the AI had revealed, drones designed for rapid strikes and reconnaissance. Unlike human ships, these drones could operate independently, but were guided by his commands and intuition. Elias launched them into the formation, sending false signals and creating chaos. Beams of energy flew in multiple directions, forcing the fleet to divide and respond to phantom threats. The fleet commander, a massive vessel at the center, adapted quickly. Energy shields flared, and hundreds of smaller ships moved in precise coordination, cutting off potential escape routes. Elias's heart pounded. He knew the fleet's advantage lay in their discipline and numbers. But humans had one weapon the aliens could not calculate: imagination. He recalled an old strategy from his military training: divide and confuse. Using the warship's energy manipulators, he created temporary gravitational distortions, altering the trajectory of asteroids and debris to strike at the enemy fleet. Ships scattered, colliding, or forced to maneuver unpredictably. The commander vessel struggled to maintain formation, energy shields faltering under unexpected impacts. Elias's confidence grew. The human mind, adaptable and inventive, could turn even the most disciplined alien formation into chaos. He guided the warship with precision, adjusting shields, energy outputs, and propulsion to maximize efficiency while minimizing risk. Each maneuver drew on his instincts, his experience, and his intuition. The AI pulsed, learning from him, adapting its responses and enhancing the effectiveness of every action. Hours passed in a blur of motion, energy beams, and calculated risk. Elias ducked instinctively as a nearby projection panel exploded, sending shards of holographic light across the cockpit. His arm ached, his leg burned, but he ignored the pain. Focus was survival, and survival demanded constant adaptation. Then came a critical moment. The commander vessel unleashed a concentrated energy pulse aimed directly at the warship. Elias knew that even a fraction of the beam could cripple them. Acting on instinct, he tilted the ship at a precise angle, using the pulse to ricochet against an asteroid belt, directing it away from critical systems. The maneuver was dangerous, and the AI's simulations had warned against it. But human intuition saw a solution the calculations missed. The pulse struck a nearby asteroid instead, shattering it into fragments that rained down on the alien fleet. Smaller ships were destroyed instantly. Others were forced into chaotic maneuvers. Elias grinned, feeling the thrill of victory tempered by caution. Humans could think in ways machines could not. They could improvise, adapt, and exploit the unexpected. The fleet began to retreat, battered and confused. Elias allowed the warship to follow, using careful energy projections to prevent their regrouping. One by one, enemy ships were disabled or destroyed, demonstrating the power of combining human creativity with alien technology. Yet victory did not bring relief. Elias knew the warship's capabilities were vast, but it was still a tool, a partner, not a replacement for human decision-making. The galaxy was full of unknown threats, and relying solely on brute force or alien systems would be fatal. He sat back, exhausted, watching the remnants of the fleet scatter. The AI pulsed around him, a silent acknowledgement of their success. Elias allowed himself a small smile. He had done it. Together, they had demonstrated that human ingenuity, courage, creativity, and adaptability was a force the galaxy could not ignore. But even in triumph, he felt the weight of responsibility. The colonies were safe for now, but there were countless worlds, countless fleets, and countless dangers yet to come. Elias had awakened an ancient weapon, but the galaxy would not remain silent. Challenges were inevitable, and each challenge would demand not only the warship's power but the unique strengths of humanity itself. He flexed his arm again, wincing but ignoring the pain. He had survived impossible odds before, and he would survive again. Humans were resourceful, courageous, and determined. That was their greatest strength, far beyond any technology or firepower. And in the endless expanse of space, that strength would shine brightly. Elias looked out at the stars, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The warship pulsed beneath him, alive and aware, but it relied on his decisions as much as he relied on its power. Together they were a partnership, human intuition and alien technology fused into a single unstoppable force. He knew the battles ahead would be harder, more dangerous, and filled with uncertainty. But he also knew this. As long as humans could think, adapt, and act with courage, they could face any challenge the galaxy placed before them. And somewhere deep within the warship, the AI began to understand something profound about its human partner. Elias Kane was not just a survivor. He was a human, a species capable of turning impossible odds into victories, of creating solutions from chaos, and of wielding power responsibly. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for centuries, but Elias would prove that underestimation was a grave mistake. The warship lifted silently, gliding toward the next threat, carrying its human partner into the unknown, and for the first time in centuries the stars seemed alive with possibility. Elias gritted his teeth and set his jaw. The mission was far from over, but for now he allowed himself a moment of triumph. Humanity had survived, adapted, and prevailed, and in the vast dark expanse of space that spark of ingenuity would not be extinguished. The warship glided silently through the black emptiness of space, its black hull reflecting the distant glow of distant stars. Elias Kane stood in the cockpit, his body still battered from the crash, the scout attacks, and the recent battles against the alien fleets. His arm and leg throbbed with pain, but his mind was sharper than ever. He had faced impossible odds before, but what awaited him now was the greatest challenge of all. A fleet unlike any other, commanded by an intelligence as cunning as it was ruthless. The AI pulsed around him almost like a heartbeat. They had tracked the alien fleet across the star system, and it had gathered hundreds of ships forming a massive armada. Each vessel radiated energy signatures far beyond those of the previous enemies. The stakes were higher than ever. The human colonies in the sector depended on him, and failure would mean annihilation. "We can't fail this time," Elias whispered to himself. "Not when so many lives are at stake." The AI responded with calm pulses, conveying understanding, readiness, and trust. Elias had grown to rely on this strange, sentient machine, and now their bond would be tested to the limit. As they approached the fleet, Elias studied their formation. The ships were organized with military precision, shields aligned, weapons ready, but human ingenuity had proven time and again that even perfect discipline could be broken by unpredictability, creativity, and courage. Elias began to formulate a plan, one that relied not on raw firepower, but on strategy and improvisation. He activated the warship's cloaking system and projected multiple energy signatures to confuse enemy sensors. The alien fleet adjusted, but Elias anticipated their movements, predicting their responses using a combination of instinct and careful observation. The warship moved like a predator, silent, precise, and deadly. Then Elias deployed the drones, hundreds of them, into the fleet. They acted independently but followed his guidance. Some created false signals. Others carried energy charges designed to disable enemy ships without destroying them completely. The fleet commander, a massive ship at the center, became frustrated, overreacting to the chaotic movements. Its smaller vessels faltered, giving Elias the opening he needed. He gritted his teeth, focusing on every calculation and instinct. This battle was unlike any before. Mistakes could mean total destruction, yet he had learned to adapt, to improvise, to think creatively when faced with situations beyond pure logic. Humanity had a unique edge, and he intended to use it. Energy beams streaked across the void, and the warship dodged with uncanny precision, guided by both human intuition and alien AI calculations. Elias directed energy pulses at critical points in the enemy fleet, using the environment, asteroid belts, gravity wells, and radiation fields to amplify the effect. One by one, ships were disabled, their energy signatures extinguished, their formations broken. The central ship of the fleet launched a concentrated strike at the warship, a beam so powerful it could have shattered planets. Elias reacted instantly. He tilted the ship, angling the beam against an asteroid cluster to deflect it. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring, but they survived. He countered immediately, directing a pulse through the asteroid field to strike the central ship. The resulting explosion sent fragments ricocheting through the fleet, disabling multiple vessels. Victory was not easy, and the battle raged on for hours. Elias's body screamed with exhaustion, but his mind remained clear. He trusted the AI, and it trusted him. Together, they exploited weaknesses, adapted to enemy maneuvers, and turned the fleet's own strategies against them. Finally, the tide turned. The central ship faltered, its shields failing under constant pressure and unpredictable attacks. The remaining vessels, seeing their commander's vulnerability, began to retreat, scattering across the star system. Elias did not pursue recklessly. Instead, he consolidated their advantage, ensuring the fleet could not regroup and threaten the human colonies again. When the last of the alien ships disappeared into the void, Elias sank into the cockpit chair, breathing heavily. The warship pulsed softly around him, a quiet acknowledgement of the victory. He had done it. Against overwhelming odds, humanity had prevailed not because of raw strength, but because of ingenuity, courage, and determination. The AI projected an image into his mind, symbols he had come to understand as gratitude. It had learned from him, adapted to him, and now recognized humanity as a species capable of creativity, resilience, and leadership. Elias felt a strange pride. Humanity had always faced adversity, always been underestimated, yet time and again, they had risen to meet impossible challenges. He looked out at the stars, reflecting on the journey that had begun on the barren deserts of Tarkus. He had been a wounded survivor stumbling into ancient ruins. He had awakened a warship of unimaginable power, faced scouts and fleets, and learned to command it with skill and courage. Now he had proven that even a single human, guided by determination and creativity, could change the fate of entire civilizations. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers, ancient powers, and civilizations yet to be discovered. The warship was a tool, a powerful ally, but it was also a responsibility. Humanity had been given an opportunity to step onto the galactic stage, to show that even a young species could wield power wisely and heroically. He set a course for the nearest human colony, not just to deliver news of victory, but to establish contact, to ensure humanity would be ready for whatever challenges awaited them. The warship responded instantly, engines flaring silently as they accelerated through space. It was fast, efficient, and alive, but it was no substitute for human initiative. Elias' decisions, instincts, and courage were the true driving force. As the first human worlds came into view, Elias felt a swell of hope. The colonists below had no idea of the battle that had just been fought, of the fleets that had threatened them, or of the human ingenuity that had saved their lives. They would perhaps never fully understand how a single wounded human had stood against a galactic threat and prevailed. And yet Elias knew the truth. Humanity had proved itself once again. Creativity, courage, and determination, qualities that no machine or alien calculation could fully replicate, had turned the impossible into victory. That was the legacy he would carry, the proof that even a fragile, young species could rise to greatness when tested. The warship pulsed around him, its energy flowing like a heartbeat, alive yet obedient, a testament to the bond that had formed between human and machine. Elias smiled despite his pain and exhaustion. They had done it. Together they had changed the course of the galaxy. He looked toward the stars ahead. The universe was vast, and there would be other fleets, other threats, and other challenges. But Elias Kane was no longer just a survivor. He was a human, a species capable of shaping its destiny through courage, ingenuity, and resilience. And with the warship at his command, he was ready to face whatever came next. The stars stretched endlessly, silent and watchful. And in that silence, Elias Kane felt a surge of determination.
Humanity had awakened not just power, but purpose.
The galaxy had underestimated them for too long. From the deserts of Tarkis to the infinite expanse of space, humans would no longer be overlooked, and somewhere deep within the warship, the AI pulsed softly, a quiet affirmation of what it had learned. Humanity was extraordinary, unpredictable and unstoppable when driven by courage and ingenuity. Together, human and machine would explore, defend, and conquer challenges that no one had dared to imagine. Elias Kane pressed a hand against the console, feeling the pulse of the warship echo with his own heartbeat. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in centuries he felt the galaxy itself was within reach. Humanity's spark had ignited, and its light would shine across the stars, unyielding and brilliant. The adventure that began with a crash, a stumble, and a discovery in ancient ruins had transformed him and humanity forever. The warship hummed around him, alive, waiting ready, and Elias Kane, wounded yet unbroken, stared at the endless expanse of space and smiled. The galaxy had learned one lesson that it would never forget. Humans were not to be underestimated.
The bridge of the exploration vessel Horizon hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Captain Tom Reed sat in his command chair, blue eyes fixed on the vast starscape that stretched before him. His ship was 3 months into its patrol route through the outer colonies, and so far, it had been uneventful, perhaps too uneventful. "Status report," he called out, more from habit than necessity. First Officer Lisa Bell looked up from her console. "All systems normal, Captain. We'll reach Colony Outpost 7 in about 48 hours. Tom nodded. Lisa was reliable, steady, and sharp. He'd served with her for 5 years now, and in that time, she'd never once let him down. Unlike some of the newer crew members, she didn't get caught up in wild stories or space myths. "Sir," called Tactical Officer James Wilson from his station, "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors." James was young but skilled, with a keen eye for details others might miss. "It's gone now, but for a moment, there was something." Engineer Mike Cooper snorted from where he was checking system diagnostics. "Probably just sensor ghosts. This region is known for magnetic disturbances." "It wasn't a disturbance," James insisted. "It had a pattern to it." "Don't tell me you believe in the ghost ship too," Mike said with a laugh. "Next you'll be saying it was the Spectre itself coming to haunt us." Tom raised an eyebrow. "The what?" Lisa sighed. "It's nothing, Captain. Just an old story that's been circulating among the outer colonies. Supposedly, there's a phantom ship that appears and disappears near the Orion Nebula. Some say it's a lost military vessel from the early colony wars." "It's not just a story," communications specialist Anna Ward chimed in, turning in her chair. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "My cousin works on Mining Station Delta, and they saw it last month. A massive ship, old Earth design, that appeared on their sensors for 3 minutes then vanished completely." Tom leaned back in his chair. "I've been patrolling this sector for 15 years. If there was a ghost ship out here, I think I would have seen it by now." "That's what makes it a ghost, Captain," Anna replied with a smile. "It only shows itself when it wants to be seen." Mike laughed again, or when someone's had too much synthetic alcohol. The conversation was interrupted by a beep from Lisa's console. "Captain, incoming transmission from Colony Outpost 7. They're requesting we make a slight detour. There's someone there who wants to meet with us." Tom frowned. "Did they say who or why?" "Just that it's important. Something about unusual activity in the sector." "Plot the course," Tom ordered. "Let's see what's so important." 2 days later, the Horizon docked at Colony Outpost 7, a spinning ring-shaped station that served as a supply hub for the mining operations in the area. Tom and Lisa made their way through the crowded main concourse, past traders and miners and families going about their daily business. The station administrator, a thin woman named Keller, led them to a small meeting room near the outer ring. "He's been waiting for you," she said. "Keeps saying he has information that could save lives." When the door slid open, Tom was surprised to see an old man sitting at the table. He must have been at least 90, with a weathered face and silver hair. His right arm was mechanical, an older model prosthetic that spoke of military service long ago. "Captain Reed," the old man said, his voice surprisingly strong. "I'm John Gray, former lieutenant on the UES Dauntless. I served during the colony wars." Tom sat down across from him. "What can I do for you, Lieutenant Gray?" "It's just Gray now." The old man's eyes were sharp, alert. "I hear your ship has been detecting unusual readings in Sector 12. Tom exchanged a quick glance with Lisa. They hadn't reported any sensor anomalies to the station. "What makes you say that?" "Because that's where it begins. First, the sensor readings that don't make sense. Then sightings at the edge of visual range. Finally, if you're unlucky, a full encounter." Gray leaned forward. "You're on a collision course with the ghost, Captain." Lisa frowned. "You mean the Spectre? That's just a story people tell." "Is it?" Gray's mechanical hand tapped the table rhythmically. 80 years ago, I was on a patrol just like yours when we encountered the UES Spectre, a stealth ship on a classified mission. We exchanged communications, logged their position, and went on our way." His eyes grew distant. 3 days later, they'd vanished from all tracking systems. The official report said they were lost with all hands due to a drive malfunction. "I'm sorry," Tom said. "Losing fellow soldiers is always hard." "You don't understand," Gray said. 6 months after they disappeared, the Spectre appeared again, right in the middle of a skirmish with rebel forces. It fired on the enemy ships, saved our entire squadron, and then vanished again before we could make contact. Tom studied the old man's face for signs of senility or deception, but found only earnest concern. "Even if I believed you, what does this have to do with us?" "Because it's happening again. Over the past month, there have been 7 sightings in your patrol area. The pattern is the same as 80 years ago." Gray slid a data chip across the table. "These are all the records I've managed to gather. Sensor readings, visual data, everything." Tom pocketed the chip. "I'll look into it, but I can't promise anything." "Just be careful, Captain," Gray warned. "The Spectre isn't dangerous on its own, but where it goes, trouble follows. And if you do see it," his voice dropped, "remember that not all ghosts know they're dead." Back on the horizon, Tom called his senior officers to the briefing room and played the data from Gray's chip. The sensor readings showed brief energy spikes throughout sector, appearing and disappearing with no discernible pattern. "It could be anything," Mike said with a dismissive wave. "Solar flares, asteroid impacts, illegal mining operations." James shook his head. "Look at the energy signature. It's military grade and old. Really old." "So maybe it's debris from the colony wars," Lisa suggested. "There were dozens of battles fought in this region." Anna, who had been quiet until now, pointed to a section of data. "These communication fragments. They are using encryption protocols that haven't been used in decades. And look at the timestamps. There's a pattern." Tom looked closer at the data. Anna was right. When arranged chronologically, the appearances weren't random at all. They were systematic, like a search pattern. "Whatever this is," Tom said slowly, "it's moving with purpose, and its next appearance should be." He traced the pattern forward, here, near Mining Outpost 42. "That's less than a day's journey at maximum speed," Lisa noted. Tom stood up. "Plot a course. If there's something out there, ghost ship or not, I want to know what it is before it reaches any civilian outposts." As the officers filed out, Tom stayed behind, staring at the display. The rational part of his mind told him there had to be a logical explanation for the anomalies. Ships didn't just disappear and reappear across decades. But after 15 years in deep space, he'd learned one important lesson. The universe was stranger than anyone imagined, and some legends had their roots in truth. The question was, what truth lay behind the legend of the ghost ship? And more importantly, What would happen when they found it? The horizon cut through the darkness of space. Engines pushed to maximum as they raced toward mining outpost 42. Captain Tom Reed hadn't slept in nearly 20 hours, but adrenaline kept him alert. If the pattern held true, whatever was causing the strange readings would appear within the next 6 hours. Status report, he called, rubbing his tired eyes. All systems running at peak efficiency, Engineer Mike Cooper replied from his station. Though I still think we're chasing shadows. Lisa Bell shot Mike a warning look before turning to Tom. We're 3 hours from the predicted coordinates, Captain. No unusual readings yet. Tom nodded and stood up to stretch his legs. The bridge was tense, each crew member feeling the weight of anticipation. Even Mike, for all his skepticism, checked his readings more carefully than usual. Captain, Anna Ward called suddenly from communications. I'm picking up something strange. Everyone turned toward her station. It's a transmission, but Anna's fingers flew over her console. It's using an old military frequency, and the encryption is like nothing I've seen before. Can you decode it? Tom asked, moving to stand behind her. Anna shook her head. I'm trying, but it's complex. Wait, I'm getting fragments now. She activated the ship's speakers, and a broken voice filled the bridge. Patrol sector, unknown contacts, request immediate, standard protocols. The voice faded in and out, distorted by static and something else, a strange warping effect that made it sound both distant and too close at the same time. That doesn't sound like a recording, James said from Tactical. That sounds live. But who would be using military frequencies that haven't been active for decades? Lisa asked. Tom turned to her. The ghost ship. For once, no one laughed or rolled their eyes. The voice on the transmission sounded real. A person speaking in the present, using protocols from the past. Anna, keep working on that transmission. See if you can clean it up or respond on the same frequency, Tom ordered. James, I want all sensors at maximum sensitivity. If there's anything out there larger than a pebble, I want to know about it. Captain, Mike called, his usual skepticism absent from his voice. I'm detecting an energy signature at the edge of our sensor range. It just appeared. On screen, Tom commanded. The main view screen shifted to show a distant section of space, filled with asteroids and debris. At first, Tom saw nothing unusual. Then, between two large asteroids, something moved. Magnify, he ordered. The image zoomed in, and Tom felt his breath catch. There, partially hidden by the asteroid field, was a ship. But unlike any ship he'd seen before, its design was clearly human but from an era long past. Sleek and predatory, with sharp angles and massive gun emplacements that modern ships had abandoned decades ago. Most striking was its color, or rather, the lack of it. The hull was a deep, light-absorbing black that seemed to bend the starlight around it. In places, the darkness shimmered and shifted, as if the ship wasn't fully solid. That's it, Anna whispered. The Spectre. Tom stared at the image, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Can we get any readings from it? Negative, James replied, his voice tight. Our sensors are having trouble locking on. It's like the ship is flickering in and out of normal space. It matches no known ship design in our database, Lisa reported. But the general configuration is consistent with heavy cruisers from the late Colony War era. The markings, Anna pointed to faded symbols visible on one section of the hull. Those are Earth military insignias from 80 years ago. Mike, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. Captain, that ship is powering up. I'm detecting energy buildup consistent with weapon systems. Shields up, Tom ordered. Battle stations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but there was a new tension in their movements. This wasn't a pirate vessel or a known enemy. This was something else entirely. Should we arm weapons? James asked, finger hovering over the tactical controls. Tom hesitated. No, not yet. Let's see what they do first. The minutes ticked by intense silence as the mysterious vessel continued to power up its systems. On the view screen, more details became visible as dormant sections of the ship came to life. It was massive, at least twice the size of the Horizon, and despite its age, looked deadly efficient. "Captain," Anna called. "I've managed to open a channel on their frequency." "Put me through," Tom said, straightening his uniform. Anna nodded, and Tom spoke clearly. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Tom Reed of the exploration vessel Horizon. We mean you no harm. Please identify yourself." Silence filled the bridge as they waited for a response. Then, after what felt like an eternity, a voice crackled through the speakers. "This is the United Earth Ship Spectre. You are in restricted military space. Identify yourself and your purpose immediately." The voice was firm, commanding, and completely serious about a restricted zone that hadn't existed for decades. Tom exchanged glances with Lisa before responding. "UES Spectre, we are on a routine patrol mission. There is no restricted zone in this sector. It's open space near Mining Outpost 42. Another long pause followed. "Your information is incorrect." The voice finally replied. "This sector is under military quarantine by order of Earth Command. All civilian vessels are to withdraw immediately." "Earth Command," Lisa whispered. "That command structure was dissolved 60 years ago after the unification." Tom nodded grimly. "Anna, are we getting any visual on their bridge?" "Negative, Captain. They're only transmitting audio." Tom thought quickly. If this truly was the legendary ghost ship, they were dealing with a crew that might be operating under outdated information, or worse, trapped in some kind of temporal anomaly, where the colony wars were still ongoing. "UES Spectre," Tom said carefully. "What is the current date according to your ship's log?" The question was met with silence. "They're scanning us," James reported suddenly. "Deep scan. They're looking at everything. Our engines, weapons, even our hull composition." "Let them look," Tom said. "They're trying to figure out who we are, just like we're trying to figure out who they are." The voice from the Spectre returned, now with an edge of confusion. "Your ship design is unknown to us. Identify your maker and allegiance." "We are an Earth vessel," Tom replied. "We represent the United Colonies, the government formed after the colony wars ended." After the wars ended. The voice had changed, now filled with disbelief. "What year do you claim it is?" Tom met Lisa's eyes before answering. "By the standard Earth calendar, it's 2472. The silence that followed was heavy. When the voice returned, it was lower, almost a whisper. "That's impossible. Our chronometers read 2392. 80 years difference," Anna said quietly. "Exactly what Gray told us." Before Tom could respond, James called out, "Captain, energy spike. There." His words were cut off by a brilliant flash of light. The Horizon rocked violently as alarms blared across the bridge. "Report," Tom shouted, grabbing his chair for support. They fired a warning shot. James called back, fingers flying over his console. "High-energy beam weapon. Nothing like what we have." It passed within 50 meters of our bow. "Damage?" "None, but our shields wouldn't have stopped it if they'd aimed directly at us." Mike reported, face pale. "That technology it's beyond anything I've ever seen." On the view screen, the Spectre was now fully visible, its engines glowing with an eerie blue light. The ship was no longer hiding. "They're hailing us again," Anna reported. Tom straightened himself. "Put them through." The voice that came through was cold and precise. "That was a demonstration. The next will not miss. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with lethal force." Tom realized that the encounter had just escalated from mysterious to dangerous. Whatever the Spectre was, ghost ship, time anomaly, or something else entirely, it now saw the Horizon as a threat. And based on that warning shot, it had the firepower to back up its threats. Lower shields and prepare to be boarded. Not a chance, Tom said firmly, gripping the arms of his captain's chair. He turned to Lisa. Options. Lisa's mind worked quickly. We can't outgun them. That warning shot proved that. But maybe we can outrun them. Mike, what's your assessment of their propulsion system? Tom asked. The engineer studied his readings. Hard to tell. Their technology is both advanced and outdated at the same time. But if that energy signature is any indication, they might be faster than us too. Anna suddenly straightened in her seat. Captain, they're gone. What? Tom turned to the main screen. Where the massive form of the Spectre had been moments before, there was nothing but empty space and distant asteroids. Sensors confirm, James reported, bewildered. No trace of the vessel. It's like it just vanished. Tom stood up, staring at the empty space. That's impossible. A ship that size can't just disappear. Unless it's truly a ghost, Anna whispered. Or has technology we don't understand. Lisa countered. Some kind of cloaking system, maybe. Mike shook his head. No cloaking technology I know of can hide a ship that completely. Even the best stealth systems leave some trace. Heat, gravity distortion, something. Keep scanning, Tom ordered. They're out there somewhere. The bridge fell silent as each officer focused on their tasks, searching for any sign of the mysterious vessel. Minutes stretched into an hour with no results. Finally, Tom sighed. Set course back to Colony Outpost 7. We need to report this to Command. 3 days later, the Horizon was docked at Colony Outpost 7. Tom sat in a secure communication room, facing the stern image of Admiral Jones on the screen. Let me get this straight, Captain, the Admiral said, his bushy eyebrows drawn together. You're claiming to have encountered a ship that's been missing for 80 years, which fired on you with unknown technology, and then vanished without a trace. Yes, sir, Tom replied. I know how it sounds, but my entire bridge crew witnessed it. We have sensor logs and recordings of the communications. The Admiral was silent for a moment. Your logs show some kind of vessel. I'll grant you that. But the Spectre. That ship was lost with all hands in 2392. That's exactly the year they thought it was, sir, Tom pointed out. Admiral Jones sighed heavily. I sent your data to our analysts. In the meantime, I'm assigning the Horizon to investigate further. If this is the Spectre, we need to know how it's still operational and what happened to its crew. Tom nodded. What about the mining outposts in the region? If the Spectre is hostile. We've already issued warnings to all facilities in the sector, the Admiral assured him. But your priority is to find that ship again. We need answers, not just ghost stories. Understood, sir. As the Admiral's image faded from the screen, Tom felt the weight of the mission settle on his shoulders. Finding a ship that could appear and disappear at will wouldn't be easy. Back on the Horizon, Tom called a meeting in the ship's library, a small room filled with data terminals and actual physical books, a rarity on modern vessels. I've been granted access to classified military archives, he told his senior officers. If we're going to find the Spectre again, we need to understand what we're dealing with. He activated the main screen, displaying old technical schematics and mission reports. The UES Spectre was part of a classified program called Project Phantom. They were developing stealth technology that would allow ships to operate behind enemy lines during the colony wars. What kind of stealth technology? Mike asked, leaning forward with interest. That's where it gets strange, Tom replied. Most of the technical details are still classified, but there are references to phase shifting and temporal displacement throughout the reports. Time travel? Anna asked, eyes wide. Not exactly, Lisa said, scrolling through the data. More like existing slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. Theoretically, it would make a ship nearly impossible to detect. James frowned. But the reports also mentioned side effects. Crew experiencing temporal disorientation, and reality slippage, which could explain why they think it's still 2392. Tom noted, what if the ship's technology somehow isolated them from the normal flow of time? Mike looked skeptical. That's a big leap, Captain. Maybe, Tom agreed. But it would explain how a ship could disappear for decades and then reappear with a crew that hasn't aged. Anna, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. I've been analyzing the pattern of Spectre sightings over the past month. She pulled up a star chart on her tablet. They're not random. Look, each appearance is near a mining facility or automated extraction site. They're gathering resources, Lisa realized. But for what? Tom wondered. The answer came 3 days later when an emergency transmission reached the horizon from Mining Station Delta. This is Station Chief Williams. We're under attack. An unknown vessel appeared from nowhere, and wait, they're not attacking us. They're taking our processed uranium shipment. Tom immediately ordered full speed to the mining station, but by the time they arrived, the Spectre was long gone, along with 20 tons of refined uranium, a key component in high-performance energy systems. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern repeated. The Spectre would appear, take specific resources from mining operations, always uranium, specialized alloys, or rare elements, and vanish before the horizon could intercept. They're gathering materials to repair something, Mike concluded after analyzing the theft reports. Probably their propulsion system or whatever device allows them to phase in and out of normal space. But why now? Lisa asked. If they've been stuck in some kind of temporal bubble for 80 years, what changed? Tom had no answer, but he was determined to find out. In his quarters that night, Tom studied the reports of every Spectre sighting, looking for any clue they might have missed. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he couldn't rest. Not while the ghost ship remained a mystery. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Mike entered, holding a small device in his hands. "Captain, I think I've figured out how to track them." Tom sat up straight. "How?" "Every time they phase in or out, they leave behind a specific energy signature. Very faint, but detectable if you know what to look for." Mike set the device on Tom's desk. "I've modified one of our sensor arrays to detect these energy traces. They last about 6 hours after the ship disappears." Tom picked up the device, hope rising in his chest. "Can you track where they went?" Mike smiled. "Better. I can predict where they'll appear next." The horizon waited in empty space, all non-essential systems powered down to avoid detection. According to Mike's calculations, the Spectre would appear in this exact location within the next hour to collect radiation samples from a nearby pulsar. Tom paced the bridge, checking the time every few minutes. Any sign of them? "Nothing yet, Captain," James replied from Tactical. "But we're ready." The minutes ticked by slowly. Tom was beginning to wonder if Mike's calculations had been wrong when Anna suddenly straightened. "Captain, I'm detecting the energy signature. It's faint, but growing stronger." "All hands, battle stations," Tom ordered. "Shields up, but weapons on standby only. I want to talk to them before things escalate." The space before them seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Then, with a flash of blue-white light, the massive form of the Spectre appeared, so close that it filled the entire view screen. "Got you," Tom said quietly. And this time, he wasn't going to let them disappear again. "Hail them," Tom ordered, his eyes fixed on the massive ship that loomed before them. Anna nodded, fingers dancing across her console. "Channel open, Captain." Tom took a deep breath. "UES Spectre, this is Captain Tom Reed of the Horizon. We mean you no harm. We only want to talk." The bridge crew waited in tense silence. The Spectre hung motionless in space, its dark hull absorbing the light of nearby stars. It looked both ancient and timeless, a relic from the past that somehow seemed more advanced than their own modern vessel. Finally, a voice responded. "This is Commander David Miller of the UES Spectre. Why have you been following us, Horizon?" Tom glanced at Lisa before responding. We've been trying to understand who you are and what you're doing in this sector. The UES Spectre was declared lost 80 years ago. Another long pause followed. When Commander Miller spoke again, his voice had lost some of its hardness. Captain Reed, I'm willing to meet with you to discuss our situation. You may dock with us. Bring no more than 3 officers, and come unarmed. Understood, Tom replied. We'll approach for docking. As the communication ended, Lisa immediately objected. Captain, you can't seriously be considering this. It could be a trap. It's our best chance to get answers, Tom said firmly. Lisa, you and Mike will come with me. James, you have the bridge. If we don't check in every 30 minutes, take the Horizon back to Outpost 7 and report to Admiral Jones. James nodded grimly. Understood, sir. As they prepared for the docking, Mike approached Tom in the shuttle bay. I've analyzed more of their energy readings, he said quietly. Whatever technology they're using, it's unstable. There are radiation patterns I've never seen before. All the more reason to find out what's happening, Tom replied, checking his communicator. The short journey from the Horizon to the Spectre was tense. Tom watched through the shuttle viewport as they approached the ghost ship's docking bay, a massive dark opening in the hull that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Look at the hull, Lisa whispered as they got closer. Those aren't battle scars. Tom saw what she meant. The ship's exterior was covered in strange patterns, rippling distortions in the metal itself, as if the hull had partially melted and reformed countless times. What could cause that? Mike wondered. Let's find out, Tom said as their shuttle slid into the docking bay. The interior of the Spectre was unlike any ship Tom had ever seen. The corridors were standard military design from the era, but everything had a strange, fluid quality to it. Walls seemed to shimmer slightly when viewed from the corner of the eye. Light panels flickered with patterns that felt almost alive. They were met by 2 security officers in old Earth military uniforms. The officers looked young, no more than 30, but their eyes held an unsettling weariness. Commander Miller is waiting in the briefing room, one said, his voice flat. Follow us. As they walked through the ship, Tom noticed how quiet it was. A vessel this size should have had a crew of at least 200, but they passed fewer than a dozen people. Everyone they saw had the same tired, distant look in their eyes. The briefing room was large and dominated by a central table. Standing at its head was a tall man with close-cropped gray hair and a trim beard. His uniform bore the insignia of a commander in the old Earth fleet, but it looked worn and had been repaired many times. Captain Reed, he said, extending his hand. Commander David Miller, welcome aboard the Spectre. Tom shook his hand, noting the firm grip. This is my first officer, Lisa Bell, and Chief Engineer, Mike Cooper. Miller nodded to them, then gestured to chairs. Please, sit. I imagine you have many questions. More than I can count, Tom admitted as they sat down. Starting with how a ship that disappeared 80 years ago is still operational with a crew that should be long dead. Miller's face showed no surprise at the statement. He simply nodded. From your perspective, the Spectre vanished 80 years ago. From ours, it's been just under 10 years. How is that possible? Lisa asked. The phase shift drive, Miller replied, activating a holographic display in the center of the table. An image appeared showing a complex device, unlike any engine Tom had seen before. The Spectre was developed as the ultimate stealth vessel, Miller explained. The phase shift drive was designed to move the ship slightly out of phase with normal spacetime, making us essentially invisible to sensors and even the naked eye. Mike leaned forward, fascinated. You exist in a different dimension. Not exactly, Miller said. Think of it more like operating at a different frequency. We're still in the same space, but vibrating at a different rate, so to speak. What went wrong? Tom asked. Miller's face grew somber. Our first test of the phase shift drive at full power. We were supposed to shift just enough to avoid detection, but something malfunctioned. We shifted too far. He looked down at his hands. When we managed to shift back, our communications were dead. No one responded to our signals. When we finally reached Earth, everything had changed. You experienced time dilation, Mike said with dawning understanding. While you were phase shifted, time passed differently for you than for the rest of the universe. Miller nodded. For us, we were gone for 3 weeks. For everyone else, it had been 79 years. And your crew? Lisa asked gently. We started with a crew of 200, Miller said. We've lost 74 to various complications of phase shifting. The human body wasn't meant to exist between states of reality. He gestured to a younger officer standing quietly in the corner. There are only 6 of us left now. The rest of the ship's functions are automated. Tom felt a wave of sympathy for these people, lost in time, isolated from everything they had known. The materials you've been taking from the mining stations are to repair our phase shift drive, Miller confirmed. It was damaged during our last shift. We need to fix it before we can attempt a controlled return to our own time. Your own time, Tom repeated. You're trying to go back. It's our only hope, Miller said simply. We don't belong here. This isn't our world, our time. And the longer we stay partially phase shifted, the more the crew deteriorates. We've calculated that if we can reverse the shift process precisely, we might be able to return to the exact moment we left. Mike looked skeptical. That's theoretically possible, but the precision required would be astronomical. One tiny miscalculation, and you could end up even further displaced, or worse. We're aware of the risks, Miller said firmly, but we have to try. We have families, Captain Reed, children who grew old and died thinking we abandoned them. Parents who never knew what happened to us. His voice grew quiet. We've seen our own gravestones. Tom felt the weight of Miller's words. These weren't ghosts or enemies. They were lost soldiers trying to find their way home. Commander, Tom said carefully, I want to help you. But I need to ensure the safety of this sector. Your ship has been causing fear among the colonies. Miller smiled sadly. We never meant to frighten anyone. We've been trying to minimize our interactions. The warning shot was a miscalculation. We thought you might be pirates targeting the mining stations. We can help explain the situation to command, Lisa offered. Get you official assistance instead of having to steal materials. Miller shook his head. We don't have time for bureaucracy. Our chief scientist estimates we have less than a month before the phase shift becomes irreversible. We need to complete repairs and attempt the time jump before then. Tom considered this information. At least let us provide some of the materials you need. Legitimately, it would be faster and safer than raiding mining stations. Miller seemed about to reply when alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. A voice came over the intercom. Commander, unknown vessels approaching at high speed. They're charging weapons. Miller was on his feet instantly. Get to the bridge, he ordered his officers. Then, to Tom, it seems we have company, Captain Reed, and they don't appear as friendly as you. Tom followed Commander Miller at a run through the shimmering corridors of the Spectre. Lisa and Mike kept pace behind them as alarms continued to blare throughout the ship. Who would be attacking us? Tom asked as they hurried toward the bridge. Pirates, most likely, Miller replied grimly. The outer colonies have always attracted those who prey on isolated outposts. Some things never change, even after 80 years. The bridge of the Spectre was a stark contrast to the horizons, where Tom's ship featured modern holographic displays and ergonomic stations. The Spectre's bridge was all metal and hard angles, with physical controls and view screens that seemed ancient yet somehow more solid than their modern counterparts. Only 5 officers manned the bridge, far fewer than would be needed for a ship this size. Each person operated multiple stations, moving between them with practiced efficiency. Report, Miller ordered as he took the captain's chair. A young woman with short blonde hair looked up from the tactical station. 6 vessels. Commander, matching known pirate configurations. They've surrounded our position and are charging weapons. Miller turned to Tom. Your ship is in danger too, Captain. Tom immediately activated his communicator. Read to Horizon. James, we have hostiles approaching. 6 pirate vessels. Get the shields up and prepare for evasive action. Already on it, Captain. James's voice replied. They came out of nowhere. Shields at maximum, but we're outnumbered. Miller studied the tactical display. They want the Spectre, he said. Our technology would make them unstoppable in this region. We need to coordinate our defense, Tom suggested. Together, we might stand a chance. Miller nodded. Agreed. He turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Wright, link our targeting systems with the Horizon. Let's show these pirates what 2 Earth vessels can do. The next few minutes were a flurry of activity as the crews of both ships prepared for battle. Tom watched with admiration as the skeleton crew of the Spectre worked their stations with incredible skill and focus. They're hailing us, reported the Spectre's communications officer. On screen, Miller ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a harsh-faced man with cybernetic implants covering half his face. Attention, unknown vessels. This is Captain Vex of the Free Raiders. That antique ship of yours is now our property. Surrender and we'll let your crews live as laborers in our mining operations. Miller's face remained impassive. This antique has more firepower than your entire fleet, Captain Vex. I suggest you withdraw. Vex laughed, the sound metallic and cold. Big words from a crew of ghosts. Yes, we know about the legendary ghost ship. After today, we'll be the ones controlling the legend. The screen went dark, and Miller turned to Tom. Get back to your ship, Captain Reed. This is about to get very dangerous. Tom shook his head. No, my crew can handle the Horizon. I'm staying here to help coordinate our defense. A hint of a smile touched Miller's face. Stubborn. I like that. He turned to his weapons officer. Targeting solutions on all pirate vessels. Prioritize their weapon systems. Sir, the young officer replied. Phase cannons are only at 60% capacity. The drive repairs have drained most of our power reserves. Miller's expression darkened. Then we'll have to make every shot count. Tom moved to the communication station. Read to Horizon. Lisa, Mike and I are staying aboard the Spectre to coordinate. Take positions on the far side of the ghost ship and focus fire on any vessel that attempts to flank us. Understood, Captain, James replied. Be careful over there. Here they come, Miller announced as the pirate ships accelerated toward them, energy weapons charging. The space around the 2 Earth vessels erupted in blazing light as the pirates opened fire. The Spectre rocked under the impact, but its ancient shields held. Return fire, Miller ordered calmly. The Spectre's weapons were unlike anything Tom had seen before. Beams of shifting blue-white energy lanced out from the ship, striking 2 pirate vessels with devastating accuracy. One pirate ship immediately lost power, drifting helplessly. The other spun away, its engines damaged. The Horizon added its more conventional weapons to the fight, targeting the smaller raider vessels that tried to circle behind the Spectre. For several minutes, the battle seemed evenly matched. Then 3 more pirate ships appeared on the edge of the sensor range. Reinforcements, Miller said grimly. They must want this ship badly. Tom studied the tactical display. We can't win against those numbers. Miller was silent for a moment, his eyes focused on something distant. Then he seemed to come to a decision. There is another option. He turned to his chief engineer. Status of the phase shift drive. The engineer looked alarmed. Sir, it's only partially repaired. A shift now could be catastrophic. Not a full shift, Miller clarified. Just enough to give us an edge. The engineer hesitated, then nodded. It might work. But it would burn out the drive completely. We'd never be able to attempt our return journey. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Tom realized what Miller was suggesting. sacrificing their only chance to return to their own time to save both ships in the present. "Commander," Tom began, "you don't have to." "Yes, we do," Miller cut him off. "Prepare the drive for a partial phase shift. Target the center of the pirate formation." As the engineers worked frantically at their stations, more pirate ships arrived. The Horizon took a direct hit to its port side, and James reported shield failures in that section. "Drive ready, sir," the chief engineer finally reported. "But I must emphasize, once we do this, there's no going back." Miller looked at his small crew, each face showing the same resolve. These people had already lost everything: their families, their time, their world. Now they were about to lose their last hope of returning home. "For Earth," Miller said quietly. "Then and now." His crew nodded in unison. "Execute phase shift," Miller ordered. The lights on the Spectre dimmed as power redirected to the experimental drive. Tom felt a strange sensation wash over him, like his body was becoming less solid, vibrating at a frequency just beyond perception. On the view screen, the pirate ships continued their approach, unaware of what was happening. Then the Spectre began to move, accelerating with impossible speed directly toward the center of the pirate formation. "What are you doing?" Tom asked, gripping a console for support as the ship shuddered around him. "When we phase shift, we briefly exist in both states," Miller explained, his voice strangely distant. "Half here, half elsewhere, passing through a solid object during that state." Understanding dawned on Tom. "It creates a massive energy release." Miller nodded, enough to disable their entire fleet without destroying them completely. The Spectre shot forward, its hull now shimmering with blue energy. It passed directly through the lead pirate vessel, causing no damage to either ship, but leaving a wake of crackling energy that overwhelmed the pirates' systems. One by one, the Spectre passed through or near each enemy ship, rendering them powerless without destruction. It was an awe-inspiring display of technology and precision. When it was over, the pirate fleet drifted harmlessly, their weapons and engines disabled. The Spectre returned to position beside the Horizon, but Tom could see that the ghost ship was now in trouble. Its hull flickered in and out of visibility, energy discharges crawling across its surface. "The drive is overloading," Miller reported calmly. "We need to evacuate." For the next hour, the Horizon worked to rescue the remaining crew of the Spectre. As the last shuttle departed the ghost ship, Tom stood with Miller on the Horizon's observation deck, watching the ancient vessel continue its slow disintegration. "I'm sorry," Tom said quietly, "about your way home." Miller shook his head. "Perhaps this was always our destiny, Captain Reed. To be here, now, when we were needed." He turned away from the viewport. "Besides, we've been ghosts for too long. Maybe it's time to learn how to live again." As they watched, the Spectre gave one final brilliant flash of light and vanished. Whether it had been destroyed or had made one final phase shift to parts unknown, no one could say. 2 weeks later, Tom stood in Admiral Jones' office, finishing his report. "So the legendary ghost ship saved an entire sector from pirates, then disappeared again," the Admiral summarized. "And you're telling me its crew is now integrating into our society?" "Yes, sir," Tom confirmed. "Commander Miller and his remaining crew have been granted full citizenship and veteran status. Their knowledge of phase shift technology, even if we can't replicate it yet, has advanced our research by decades." The Admiral nodded thoughtfully. "And what about the Spectre itself? Do you believe it was truly destroyed?" Tom looked out the window at the stars. "The official record will show that the UES Spectre was lost with honors, saving Earth vessels from enemy attack." He paused. "But between us, sir, I'm not convinced we've seen the last of her." "Why do you say that, Captain?" Tom smiled slightly. "Because some legends never truly die. They just wait until they're needed again." In the years that followed, there would be stories. Unconfirmed reports from ships in danger suddenly finding themselves aided by a vessel that appeared from nowhere, delivered them from harm, and vanished again before proper identification could be made. Just stories, of course, just a legend. But as Commander Miller had taught him, sometimes legends have their roots in truth.